So these are chemical resin anchors, and they're the strongest fixings for fixing heavy items such as this piece of 4x2 timber to brick or block walls like this. So this is our Chem 2, and I'm going to show you how to use chemical anchors to fix heavy things to brick walls like this one behind me. Now you can buy our Chem 2 in a kit like this one, or you can buy the components separately. You could buy the resin separately and introduce whatever threaded rod you desire for your application. In this case, the kit's perfect for what we need because it includes this M8 threaded rod. We're going to countersink that threaded rod within the timber so that we get a really solid fixing without the threaded rod poking too far through the other side. I'm putting 2 fixings in this piece of timber, and I've marked where I want the fixings. Now I've got a 22mm spade bit, and I just need to put enough depth into the timber so that I can get my nut into the piece of timber. So I'll drill a little way in there. That should be plenty, and what that'll do is house our nut. Now the threaded rod that comes with the Chem 2 kit is M8, so it's 8mm, and what that means is we want to drill an 8mm hole through the piece of timber to accommodate for the 8mm piece of threaded rod. Of course, if you're using other sizes of threaded rod, you'll need to match the drill bit size to the threaded rod that you're using. So we'll go through the centre of that hole we just made. We can pop the washer on the threaded rod, and we can put that into the piece of timber there, and if we push it home you can see that that will give us the perfect fixing into the piece of timber. So that's the 2 holes in the piece of timber. Now it doesn't matter what size timber you're using, whether you're using metal as well, you can fix all sorts using this method, and this method is for external and internal use. It will work for both. Now before we get any resin into this brick wall, of course we need to position the piece of timber or metal, whatever you're using. So that is where I want my piece of timber, and I've got my level on there. I know this piece of timber is nice and level. Now grab a tracer pencil, and then we're just going to mark through the hole onto the brick behind. Tracers are great for this because you can fit it right through the hole. I'll put a link for the tracer pencil, the resin, and all the other handy bits and bobs you need for this job in the description below. So we've got our marks where we want to put the resin anchors. Now we need to drill some holes in this brickwork to fix the chemical resin anchors in place. Now this kit in particular came with M8 threaded bolts. That means they're 8mm bolts, and what we want to use to drill our hole is a 10mm drill bit. I like to use a drill bit a couple of millimeters bigger than the piece of threaded rod that I'm using, because you want to be able to get a good enough lump of resin around this anchor, and if you make it too tight, in my opinion, you don't get enough resin around the anchor. So go a size or 2 bigger on the drill bit. Now you don't want to over penetrate. You only really need to drill that much, in my case, into the wall. So what I'm going to do is grab a Sharpie, and I'll just make a little mark on the drill bit so that I know when I reach that mark I don't need to drill any further. You can use tape. You'll see in a lot of my videos I use tape to make sure that when I hit the piece of tape I don't over penetrate into the brick. So what I'm going to do now is get these holes drilled, and then we can get some resin in. Now you'll more than likely want an SDS drill for this bit, because brick walls of course inherently are pretty hard. If it's block, you'll probably get away with a Combi drill. Now that's the holes drilled, but there's an important step that we need to do now, and that's clean the dust out of the holes. If we go putting resin in on that dusty surface, it may not get a good contact. So the first thing we need to do is use a little brush. This little brush here is perfect. This is what I usually use just to get the dust out of the hole, just to loosen any of that dust off, and then we can blow it out of the hole. You'll notice I said blow, not suck. Don't use a vacuum for this. You do want to blow the dust out of the hole. These brushes are perfect because they accommodate a lot of different sizes. Look at the amount of dust that comes out of that hole when we do that. Now we've used the brush, we're going to use this blower, put the nozzle inside the hole and blow any remaining dust out of the hole. Don't use a vacuum for this. You can use compressed air canisters. They're really cheap. Again, I'll put a link below. Or in my case, I've got this DeWalt blower. I'll just pop the nozzle in there, blow any dust out of the hole. And you'll just want to repeat that process a couple of times just to be sure all the dust is out of the hole. So we're going to get some resin in there now, but we want to get everything prepped before we put the resin in, because once it's in, you don't get long to work with it. You need to get everything ready. So I'm going to mark on the bolt how deep I want to set it. To do that, I'm going to poke it through the back of my piece of timber. Then I'll grab my Sharpie again, and I'm just going to mark the back of that bolt there, and I know by doing that I want to set it in up to where that mark is. Now if you did set them in and they stuck out through the piece of timber, it's not the end of the world. You can just cut the piece of rod off with a grinder, so it's no big deal, but this just skips that step because of course we want it to sit in at the right depth. So now we're ready to apply our resin. You get a couple of these nozzles in the kit, and what you want to do is just take the top off the resin. You'll notice you don't need to cut the top off. The product mixes and hardens once it comes out of the tube, so it mixes in the nozzle. So we're going to put the nozzle onto the tube, screw that on there nice and tight. Just grab a skeleton gun, place the tube in the gun, and then we're going to squeeze a little bit of this onto some cardboard. The reason I like to use a bit of cardboard is to just squeeze a bit of that off, just to make sure it's mixing properly. So I want to put a little bit of that on there, like that. So we know it's mixing in the tube. We can now apply it into the hole, push the nozzle right into the bottom of the hole. Now squeeze the handle on the skeleton gun so that the resin starts to come out of the end of the nozzle. As you're doing that, start to withdraw the nozzle out of the hole, and that will layer the resin into that hole. Pop the threaded rod in and turn that threaded rod in a screw-in motion as you push it into the resin. And I'm going to stop when I get to that mark that I made on the piece of rod. Now you want to make sure that the piece of rod is perfectly level, because once this goes off, it'll be far too hard for you to move that piece of threaded rod, and you'll be stuck with the position that you set it now. Now you'll want some gloves, and we're just going to get rid of any excess resin. There we go. Tidy that up a little bit. Again, check the level of it. And now we're going to leave them to go off. The time varies dependent on temperature, and you have to double the time if the brick or block is wet. It varies between 30 minutes and 8 hours. It tells you on the tube. I think we're probably going to leave this for about an hour because it's around the 15-degree mark, so it says leave it to cure for about an hour. Now the resin's reusable. Just clean the top out and pop the lid back on, and we can use the other nozzle and we'll be able to use this again. So what we're going to do now is leave this for 60 minutes, and once our resin's gone off, I'm going to torture test them. I'm going to try and break these off the wall to prove to you that these are the strongest fixings that you can use to fix heavy things to brick or block. Now whilst we wait for this resin to go off, I've got a little giveaway competition for you. You can win this DeWalt T-Stack case, and what's inside? None other than the 100-year DeWalt Combi drill. You can win this 100-year anniversary limited edition DeWalt Combi drill and the 4 amp hour battery, the charger, the case, all that stuff for just £1. The competition's running for just over a month until the 22nd of June. It doesn't matter how many tickets are sold. Someone's guaranteed to win this on the 22nd of June, and I've limited the tickets to 300, so the odds are really, really good. The competition's hosted over on Raffle, and you can find the link down below in the description. You'll find all the finer details over there. So go and grab a ticket and get your name in the hat for this. Right, let's see if these anchors are gone off. So these have been left an hour, and I'm sure they've gone rock hard. If we look at this piece of resin that we put on this bit of cardboard, it's just a thin piece. It is like rock already. So get rid of that. What we're going to do now is put our bit of timber on the wall. We're going to bolt it to the wall, then we're going to torture test it. Slide our bit of timber onto those anchors. There you go. So we've just got enough poking out to get the nuts on the threaded rod. Like I say, if you had more poking out, just cut it off with a grinder, file the end down, and you'll still be able to get the nuts on. These particular nuts, 13mm and a little washer. We're going to pop that over that piece of threaded rod, and I've got my ratchet with a 13mm socket, and I'm going to start to do that nut up. And there we go, that is now taking hold of that piece of timber and already starting to put some incredible tension on that threaded rod. You can hear that cracking. That is actually the timber starting to compress. That is ridiculously tight. In fact, you can actually see that's compressed that washer right into that piece of timber. Now with this kit you also get these. You can buy them separately as well. They're sleeves for hollow blocks. So for example, if you've got perforated clay blocks like you'll find in some 70s properties, or dot and dab walls for example, you can get these. And what these do, they push into the hole that you drill, you fill them with the resin then squeezes out of these little holes. It ties the threaded rod into this and allows that resin to squeeze out into whatever cavity or void you have drilled into. So these can also give a really solid fixing for uses on hollow materials. If you like videos like this, hit subscribe because you don't want to miss out on what's coming soon, and hit the like button for me so that this video can reach more people like you on YouTube. So I think what we should do now is see if this can hold a ridiculous amount of weight. Between me and you, I already know it can, but we'll hang on it, we'll put something behind it and try and prise it off the wall, and we'll see if we can break it off the wall. I very much doubt we'll be able to, but I want to show you guys how strong they are. Now I weigh about 65 kilograms, so remember there's only 2 anchors. If it can hold 65 kilograms hanging on it, it's already doing pretty well. So let's have a look. Absolutely no movement at all. So let's see if we can literally rip it off the wall. You can see I'm pushing up off my feet. I mean, that's a lot of pressure. The timber's flexing and that resin anchor is going absolutely nowhere. So our resin anchor is really the strongest fixings for fixing into brick or block. Well, I think we've probably proven the answer. I think they are. Let me know what you think in the comments down below, and if you've enjoyed this video, check out one of these because you're probably going to enjoy them as well. And I'll see you guys in the next one.